Willa Bennett, welcome to Office Hours, editor-in-chief of Cosmo and 17. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a long time in the making.
I know. I feel like we got breakfast at Golden Diner, what?
Ages ago.
Like years ago, maybe.
But that was even before you were, you didn't even have this job yet.
Yeah.
It was all just, it was a very fun, casual, but I really liked our brunch and I learned so much about you, and I'm really excited to dig into more of the themes we discussed over the best pancake in New York.
Yeah, it was good.
It's really good. How have your first few months been?
Good. I'm about to hit around 6 months.
Okay.
I think.
Oh,
so
it's been a while.
Yeah.
But your first issue came out in January.
Yes, my first issue came out January 27th. And then we kind of swarmed content between that and Valentine's Day, and I think one of my first goals was to make Cosmo synonymous with Valentine's Day. So everything from like the boom boom room party to hats that you wore to a Cosmo kiss cam. I think it's been really fun, honestly, and it's been about the issue, but it's also been about reintroducing this brand to this next generation.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the cover. It's an amazing cover. Why did you decide to go for a couple versus one person? I'm sure a lot of consideration went into it. Tell me about the thought process.
Yeah, I just realized like Cosmo had never done that in a 60-year history. And like, to me, I feel like there is nothing out there that really like talks about relationships in an authoritative way. And I feel like that's so missing from the zeitgeist right now. And so they felt like the perfect couple. They were both child stars, but also they are genuinely in love. Like I can say firsthand, being on set with them all day, like they are really in love. And there was something so modern about their relationship. They have kids, but they're not married yet. They're engaged. They've been engaged for a while. They both have crazy work schedules. It just felt so relatable and universal. And it felt like exactly what I was trying to say.
Who is Cosmo for in 2025?
I think right now, it's interesting. It's a great question. I think we have readers that have truly been following us for 60 years. But I think Gen Z and Gen Alpha, increasingly on social, especially since I've started, are flocking to Cosmo. And I'm so excited about that because, again, I feel like where do you get answers about your relationship? There are
my podcast. I'm just kidding.
No, like truly, it's like you and there's a couple people, but it's like,
of course, we want them. We want the. It felt like for a while, I think those of us who really grew up on magazines, it felt like there was a massive lull, and then in the past 3 or so, maybe 2 years, we've seen this resurgence of magazines and imprints, and more importantly, people like yourself who are the warriors, who are answering in real time the question, what is the future of magazines? And you're doing it. And I think for a while everyone was like, oh, is there going to be print? What does it mean? Like, and I actually have what is the future of print written down, which is an annoying as fuck question. But I think you're actually doing, not telling. You're literally showing what the future is. So I'm sure that was, weighing heavy on you, but can you talk a little bit about, how you see the future of, Cosmo as a magazine, as a social media account, and how you're blending them together and like what your approach is?
Yeah, of course. It's interesting. I came in 6 months ago and I was just like, where does Cosmo right now fit into the zeitgeist? Like we have this incredible history. I obviously respect it so much, and I have studied it increasingly more so, but I also, like, as a reader, grew up reading Cosmo. And I think the first thing that I really wanted to see changes on was social. It was like day one. It's also my background, so I think maybe that's a bit of my bias at times. But I came in and I was like, the social, we need to up our engagement. We're up 121%. First issue in publishing. I don't know if this is like an inside baseball thing. Did you know this? Like your first issue as EIC really sets the stage.
Totally. Well, I'm a big Tina Brown.
Okay, so
obsessive. So I loved the Vanity Fair Diaries. So I love this shit.
I'm reading that right now, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the first time. It's really good.
It's so good, isn't it?
It's really good. It's like transporting me somewhere else.
It is genuinely, I think, probably my top 5 books I've ever read. Yeah, I love it. And I've learned so much from her as like a person through her writing. Do you subscribe to her Substack?
Yeah.
I love her writing.
It's
like
amazing.
It is so to the point. It is so, she just gets to the heart of the issue in the first sentence, and I just love her writing. Sorry to cut you off, but yes.
No.
So,
I think
so. You're free. Yeah, that's why I asked about the cover, because it is a lot of everyone's all eyes on you.
Yeah, it's kind of how you announce like what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do in a very like explicit way. And it increasingly has more importance, I think, inside the industry, but also to advertisers and to audience members. And this felt like such the perfect story to go out with, but it wasn't really just about the print cover. Like, I can't say that enough. It was like about creating a moment around Valentine's Day and saying like what love feels like right now and what the experience of love is for young people. And we did that in so many different ways. Like, truly, it was just the beginning. But the whole issue is a love issue, classic Cosmo. Most of it has couples in it. We did a Serena and Cordell shoot. I wrote a Gracie Abrams profile. So it really was about like coming from all different angles of like, what does it feel like to be in love right now? And where is Cosmo's space in that?
And traditionally, Cosmo has been like pretty sexy. You know, I feel like I read so many like 10 ways to blow your man to get him to propose by Christmas articles when I was probably too young, which is probably why my brain is a bit melted now. But how sexy do you think you see Cosmo? You talked a lot about love. What about sex? Do you think that they go hand in hand?
Definitely. I think that sex is on everyone's mind. And it's definitely core to the DNA. I think it's just about talking about it in a way that relates to young people. I feel like there's so much press right now. I actually want your take on this about like young people. I was reading this article this morning actually, and it was like young people like are in a sex recession. I feel like I'm so over those headlines because I'm like, it's deeper than that.
It's totally deeper than that. Yeah. I mean, what would you attribute it to? What because I agree. I'm like, everyone's saying, oh, they're not having enough sex, but I think I read the article in The Atlantic, when was it, last week, about the isolation.
Yes, I read that.
So I think to me, it's kind of connected to that. And I think it's like we are creating a society where we're all becoming so particular because of how reliant we are on technology and the luxuries that it affords us. Everything from getting things delivered straight to our house to working from home. I know everyone hates to yell at me about that, but whatever. To, you know, making our feeds like a complete like reflection of who we are. Like, we're making it so that like nothing bad can ever happen. Like, if we just stay in our little apartment boxes and we order everything that we like and we only look at the accounts, be like, you know, whatever. Stay with me here. I think, and Scott Galloway talks a lot about this, part of what we're missing and part of at the root of the sex recession is like people are now getting really afraid to just go out and have experiences because of the anxiety, the social anxiety, or that something bad might happen. Caveat being, obviously, sex is more complicated now given our current administration and given, you know, the attack on women's rights. But for the most part, I think it relates to that. I think it relates to like the self-imposed isolation that we have on ourselves, and that people just feel like less comfortable to have a situation where something might, like, you know, first time sex can be awkward, casual sex can be awkward, etc.
Totally.
That's my take.
I think the two things I hear the most from Cosmo readers that keep me up at night is, one, I feel like loneliness. Like, I hear so much from readers being like, I want to be having sex, or I want to be having more sex, or, you know, I'm seeing two different people right now and like I just feel lonely. And I feel like that's why I really love your outside task last summer.
Outside.
Yeah, we should do that again.
Every summer. It's every summer, baby.
I think that is like so simple but so perfect. It's like we just need to talk to each other more. Totally. And like I think it is the dependency on the phone. I think that's my second thing is like screen time. I mean, I see it in the data with how much people consume on their phones. Like I saw a stat the other day that was like most Cosmo readers are watching award shows on their phone and computer screens on Cosmo.com. And I was like, love and respect for me, but I'm like, that's a crazy powerful thing to think about. Like, you know, it's like, we are so dependent on our phones. Me too. I'm completely addicted to my phone. But I think those are the two things that are having this response where people are writing like Gen Z isn't having sex. But I don't think that's true. I just think it's different, and I think technology increasingly is changing the way we connect with people.
And I think the onus falls on us as individuals to limit it. And I'm addicted to my phone, I'll be the first to say that, but that's why I love Summer of Outside so much. And every week we get calls, emails, you know, whatever follow-ups. I'm doing this because of Summer of Outside. I joined a softball league. There was a girl last year. She joined the softball league. She had this like crazy sex story because she went and like had sex with this guy, and it was so fun. And it's like, you literally just need to put down the phone. And sometimes someone will be right in front of you. You'll be at a coffee shop with a cute person, and they'll be smiling at you, and you'll miss it because you're you know, neck deep in
completely agree.
in it. And we all have to. We have to. It's on us. And sometimes, like, you know, it's just the difference between, Oh, I could order food. And listen, I'm the biggest orderer of food on the planet. So I'm not dissing that. But I'm just saying, if there's a night where you could either walk down 2 blocks and pick up your food, or you could get it delivered, go walk. You never know what's going to happen. I just saw Chrissy Rutherford post a really good video about this. She's in London right now, and her hairdresser said to her, "Why don't you go and just walk home? Because you never know who you're going to meet when you walk home." And it was just like, it's just a really good video. Go watch it. Go follow Chrissy because she's great. But I think we all just need to be outside more.
And I like love how you like package that so great for your audience and like for your community, because that is like literally, I think, the missing piece for a lot of people with dating. It's like, we just need to talk to each other more.
Yeah. Go outside, put down your phone, do things. And it's like not every night is going to be perfect. Like sometimes you go to a party and it's boring, or sometimes you go to a party and like someone's a bit rude to you, but it doesn't mean you need to go to TikTok and make a video about it and say, "Oh my God, this person didn't say hi." You're going to be okay. That's life. That's part of life. That's part of life. Tell your friend about it and move on. That's important. Okay. How much of your role, and I'm sure it's different for the, getting it up and running, but how much of your role is editing versus writing versus managing? And which do you like the best?
Managing, I've worked really, really hard on. I've read a ton of parenting books. It's my recommendation for anyone.
Parenting, really?
Yeah, it really helps. It just really teaches you like how to listen and absorb and give feedback in a way that isn't necessarily like a personal attack. It's just how it is. And I would recommend parenting books for that, and also just for dealing with conflict in general with a friend or honestly anyone. But yeah, management I've worked really, really hard on. I take it really seriously. And I always say to my team, like, the biggest thing you can invest in is your management, because it will always give back to you. Editing is like my favorite part of the job, honestly. Like, I love editing a quick piece. Like, I love like, oh, no one can grab this right now. Like, oh, I guess I have to do it. Like, like that's like my highlight of any day. I think like it's unrealistic to say that I'll be able to edit all the time, and my team's amazing at it, but it's like a personal interest. But honestly, most of the job is like finding new writers, talking to advertisers, managing the team, sourcing ideas from the team, leading brainstorms. It's a fun job. It's definitely different than the Vanity Fair diaries that we read, but and it's changing constantly. But I think it's so cool that an EIC, like, they still exist, and I want young people to know that they still exist and that you can still dream of it.
No, I think it's great. I think it's so great. And I think there's so many incredible people, like I said, who are acting as stewards for this role and this industry that I grew up revering, and so many young people. It is, despite all the changes that have happened, I think it is still kind of like that starry-eyed thing of, oh, I want to grow up, I want to be a writer, I want to be an editor, I want to work in magazines, I want to create beautiful things. It's just such an inspiration for so many young people, and I think that's why it's so important that there are people like you, like Lauren McCarthy, who are out there, showing that it's just the industry is reshaping. It's not going away whatsoever. So it's very cool.
And I think like there is a love for magazines. Like, there really is. There's a resurgence. I see it in the data. Like, I see data that's like Gen Z is going out of their way to buy this magazine. Right. So it's possible. I just think it's about activating it as not just the magazine. It's like part of the many things we do. And we're not just putting Brenda Song and Macaulay Culkin on a magazine, posting it once on Instagram and forgetting about it. It's like, no, we're really activating it. We're saying something. We're starting a conversation about modern love.
Yeah, and you're making it iconic. You're not just like slapping a celebrity on there and being like, oh, this is it. It's like, I think that illustrates you understanding what needs to be done, because that's not working. I mean, not to name any names, but some people just slap a celeb on and they go, oh, next one, just because they've got a lot of followers, it should be fine. That's not true. Yeah. I think that young people are really smart. I think that young people, look, the truth of the matter is we see celebrities in beautiful photo shoots every day on Instagram, every day. So what makes a cover? That takes an editor-in-chief to figure out and to make it a story and to make it something bigger and to make it art.
It's always everything. I always say you need a story text-wise, you need fashion, and you need like a story visually. You can't do it all without.
Agreed. You mentioned finding new writers. I'm sure a lot of people want to know this. How do you find new talent, whether it's a photographer, whether it's a writer? Where do you scour to source them?
A mix of social media. People email me. some of my favorite stories honestly came from cold emails. Like truly.
Really?
Yeah, someone, especially a platform like Cosmo, I'm like so welcoming to like, this can be the first time you ever write. Like truly, sometimes like the best ideas are not people in the industry. You know, it's like, it's so easy for us. Like we sit at the dinners of the same 10 people and then it's obviously, you know, you want to cast a model and it's like, well, I just sat next to this. Like that to me, it's like easy. But what's hard is like breaking that and being like, who is the new voice? Like who is that person in college in Ohio that like actually has the best story to tell, and it's about us giving them a platform. So I really try to do that. Sometimes they're easier than others, obviously, but yeah, I cold email honestly all the time.
Wow. Yeah, I believe in the cold email. I tell my community all the time that I believe in the cold email, but it has to be good.
Yeah.
You know, I remember like a couple cold emails of mine that worked, and I sent probably, when I used to be a writer back in the day when I was still working at corporate, like thousands and thousands of cold emails. And you kind of know when you're sending like a shoddy one, you know, when you're just like, yeah, hey, can I write a story for you, blah. And then sometimes inspiration will strike. You'll, by some miracle, find this person's email. You'll write a sharp, succinct, get to the point, 3-sentence email, and you just get it back. And you know in your heart. So I think learning the art of the cold email, or sometimes cold DM, sometimes it works. Sometimes it, you know, obviously the DM inbox is a mess, but sometimes it works. But you have to say what you want to say and get it out. That's like something that I really see in Tina's writing that I have tried to emulate, is like, get it out. Like, no preamble, blah, blah. You've already lost them. Can you think of any really good tips for cold emails that stand out to you?
I think honestly, it just needs to be like clear what you're asking for. Like,
yeah,
I get a lot of like, I want to write for Cosmo. And then I'm like, okay, great. But like, what, like, you know, we have so much going on. Like that's hard.
You don't have 100%. That's such a good point. Say what you want to do. Say what you want. Because sometimes I'll get a DM and it's really long, and I'm like, what not in a mean way, but like, what did you want?
Totally.
Start. I want to be your assistant. I want to do this. I have an interesting idea about a piece about shoes, whatever.
Yeah. And also I find this to be really common more so with women than men who email me, but like there is definitely a pattern where like women will be like, but I've never written before, and I'm like, you don't need to say that. Like it's okay. Like it's like that's not like, we don't need clips. Like just give us a good idea. Like we'll work with you. Like that's what editors are for. I'm not gonna like copy and paste what you write and put it on a website. Like there's editing for a reason, and just trust the process and trust that like we'll make sure that it's good. Just have an idea, I think, is the biggest thing. And I know that ideas come and go. You can't necessarily control that, but I just think being like direct and clear is the best.
So important. I agree. I know, and you never forget someone who works with you. My editor at Refinery 29, Connie Wang, was so patient with me. And a lot of the time when I was like doing freelance writing, they would just copy and paste it because you have a million things to do. And with the website, sometimes you need 50 pieces a day for some of them. But Connie, I remember one, she wrote me back and there was so much red lines. It was just, it was a mess. And I was like so embarrassed. And I read through her notes and it took me ages. I basically rewrote it, and I will never forget that because I learned so much in that moment. And it just means so much to you when you do get that. So if you get the opportunity, be open to the feedback because it is, it's a gift.
And like, by the way, like notes and markups, like does not mean it's bad at all. Like I've sent some of my favorite like I've read first drafts being like, all right, here are all my thoughts. Like sometimes I actually say this to people, like it's a sign of love if an editor spends more time.
100%. What do you think makes a great writer today?
I think having something to say that's direct, honestly. I think there's so much out there. It's really about like focus and directness. I think beautiful writing and storytelling will always shine through. I really do believe in that. But I think if it's unclear, it's really hard to get people's attention.
I agree.
What do you think?
No, I agree with you. And I have a follow-up question, which is that, do you think that writers today, maybe particularly as it pertains to profiling celebrities or notable people, are afraid to have opinions? Or do you think that social media has made it harder to have opinions?
I think like good writing is good writing, and there's always a way to like paint the picture so it's not like someone's good or bad. I think what's hard genuinely, and I don't think there's an answer to this, is like if you're profiling a celebrity, you get dinner with them once? Yeah. Maybe you follow them for a day, maybe 2 days, and then you're writing like a statement about a person. Like, I mean, think about when you go on a date with someone, like you don't know what type of person they are after one night. So I think that is like the eternal struggle. And then obviously like, you know, you have your editor's feedback that you're trying to implement. You have the photos. Like there are so much going on that I do find oftentimes I'll read a celebrity profile and be like, well, what else was happening? But I mean, that's kind of the writer's job. It's like you do your best. You tell the story that feels really true to you. And, you know, you try to show instead of tell. And I always tell writers, and when I edit drafts, I'm always like, okay, tell me more about what's happening. I try to talk to the writer about like the little nuances and just try to be as specific as possible, because I just never feel like it's fair on a celebrity if you're like, this person is bad or good. It's like,
Totally.
remove that.
Totally. Yeah. I know. I always like when there's, when there's a profile and they're like, oh, she came in and she was wearing this and she drank this coffee. Then I'm like, ooh, the scene is set. Like, it's good.
That stuff. And like, even when it's like where you are, sometimes helpful, like, yeah, just really like being specific about those details. I feel like and also just making sure it's like a story. Like, what are you actually saying?
Totally. It's not fluffy, because there is such a like plug and chug of a celebrity profile that's just like, she's really busy and like she loves like, her whatever.
Yeah, something I feel like I've cut out a lot recently in profiles I've been editing is like, her creative process feels so true right now. And I'm like,
no one cares.
I'm just like, I've read that in so many.
It just feels like it feels filler at this point. You covered a lot of high profile young people, especially when you were at GQ. How do you disarm someone who's famous, who you're going to profile? How do you get in there? You mentioned, you might only have one dinner with them. How do you kind of try to get them to open up?
Honestly, I just try to like ask them questions like outside of what they're promoting. I feel like it's easy to talk about work. I mean, even when you catch up with a friend, I feel like sometimes the default is to talk about work, and I kind of the opposite with profiles a lot of time, where I'm like, ask about everything else except for work, because you just want to like see where they are.
Okay.
And you should try it with your friends. It's a really interesting exercise, because it's like, if you take out work, like, what are you actually talking about? And like, how hard is it for you guys to sustain a conversation? So that's helpful. I mean, I think about like the profile I wrote for Cole Sprouse. She's one of my faves. We were supposed to have an hour together, and we ended up spending like 4 hours, and like, I don't smoke cigarettes. We were chain smoking all day. Like,
whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah. Like, that was truly like old school, in the sense it's like, he didn't kick me out and I stayed. He gave me a tour of his house, like met his girlfriend. Like, I saw his books, like, and I was just like, wow, this is so amazing. And my deadline was like 12 hours. And I remember I like literally did not put my typing down. I was about to say pen, but it was a computer, until I like turned it in, because there were just so many details and so rich. And I felt like I like really connected with him. Obviously he knows what he thought, but I think it's about like, yeah, just getting in there. I really try not to do Zoom interviews. It's so hard.
It's so hard to make a connection.
It's so hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're like, what are you going to do? Like, write about the internet connection?
Yeah, exactly. I know. And it's too much. It just feels so impersonal. Speaking of, do your teams come into the office regularly every day?
I come in 5 days a week. I did at GQ too. I did at High Snob. Like, I don't know. I'm very traditional in that sense. I make my team come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We are very strict about it, actually. Wednesdays, we have a mandatory all-staff meeting. That is my personal favorite. It's also called office hours, actually.
Oh, really?
Isn't that
I
funny?
love that.
I never put it together until today.
I love that. No, I love in person. I think it's great. I really do. I know that, people like and need some degree of flexibility, and I completely understand that. But I think especially if you're working in a creative field, you have to expect to be in person with people, and it's only respectful of the work that you're trying to create to gather in person to get it done, and that's just the end of it. If you're just, there are some jobs you can do remote, and there's some you can't, and I love working in person with people, so that's good to hear.
I think in like a couple years it'll be different. Like, I just think right now we are in a moment of change, and like we're ushering in this new era, and like every detail matters. Yeah. So I just like to be hyper specific about the details, and I think that can get lost.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. What was it like going from High Snob, which was obviously super cool, on the cutting edge, to going to Cosmo, which obviously has so much history, but that has had a lull in maybe identity, you could say, in the past couple of years, like going from, can you speak about the difference?
The differences? Yeah. High Snobiety was this like smaller sneaker blog that I was pushing to be more like youth culture and more I was trying to make it bigger. You know, my first issue was Billie Eilish, so like I kind of took this like website and was like, I'm gonna make it this mainstream thing. And then Cosmo, it's kind of the opposite, where it's like it is very mainstream, it's very mass, it has such an appeal, it means so much to so many different people, but I am really focusing on voice and specificity. So creatively, they're the opposite in the most exciting ways. I feel like where I'm most connected to Cosmo is like I grew up reading it. I can't say the same for High Snob. So it's been exciting to be like, wow, like this is something that like changed the way I thought about myself. And this is like a publication that like I had in my bedroom growing up. You know, like that, I think is so special, and like I think about a lot. And like, you know, I even think about when I was trying to figure out if I was queer, like growing up, it's like Cosmo was helpful in that. So the responsibility in some ways feels like bigger. I mean, of course. It's just so different, and like the audiences could not be more different too.
Yeah, and then talk a little bit about 17 because you're doing that. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, 17 is amazing. I was an intern at 17. So
that's crazy. Full circle.
Yeah, it's like truly, that is like so special to me. Zaya Wade was my first cover. It came out.
Great cover.
Thank you.
So great. Talk about that cover, deciding who should go on it.
I wanted a 17-year-old, and I said to Maxwell, our entertainment director, like my second day, I was like, Zaya Wade's my dream cover for 17, and he reached out, and I wrote like some notes of like why she was so special to me, and it was amazing. I like sent her some old 17 covers, and I was like, look, I started as an intern here. Like she had it all, but it was like I could cry thinking about that because I do remember being an intern and like literally writing like stories that were like, what do you do if you have a girl crush? Or like, what do you do if you think you're queer? And I remember like pushing to get those published, and now to put Zaya on the cover, it's like that's the dream. That's the dream.
No, I have chills. That's so special. And it was an amazing cover, and she's so special, and it was just great. But that's a lot of work. So did you do the Cosmo cover first, and then you had to or what? It was like
they're kind of both happening
at the same time.
Yeah, it's been busy, but honestly, it's like so natural, especially both of them. They're just like so natural. It's like I have so many ideas for who could be on the cover of Cosmo, and same with 17. It was it's just about timing. I don't know.
What do you think makes a great cover?
I think you have to say something. I think it's not enough to just put a celebrity in fancy clothes anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been okay, but I think right now especially. The world is too saturated. There's so much bad news. Like there's just so much going on. It's like it's almost like if the story's not there, I mean, just no one will see it. Like, would you stop?
No, it has to be a point of view. And I think that we're really seeing that as well. Just that conversation start to bubble up online as well. I just saw a TikTok that was like 2025 is the return of individuality. Like we're really, really wanting people to say something. And I think that you're in a really unique, exciting position to continue to do that with these different two. How do you get in the mind of a 17-year-old? Like, how do you think about that younger audience?
I talk to a lot of college students. They talk to at a lot of schools.
Do you have interns?
We don't have interns, which is like so sad.
You'll have them in the summer, I'm sure.
Well, I think we're trying to set it up for the summer. And we have contributors all over the world. I have some of my old interns that like are still NYU that like they're doing like campus style right now, which has been like fascinating.
Oh yeah, to just get in the minds of God. It like all of a sudden I looked up and I'm like, I'm so far from that age, but I'm so interested in it. Obviously, that's like the future. Everything that is coming is from that like time period, that age group. So
totally,
it's exciting.
Sometimes I feel like I'm far from it, and then other times I'm like, everything they're experiencing is so universal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't feel as far as I think I expected.
Well, you're younger than me, so. Who do you look up to in publishing?
That's interesting. I honestly look up to people who like are in these jobs that are still saying what they want. I think it's really hard to often like get your ideas through. So I truly am just like people that put stuff out. I'm like biggest fan. Yeah. I genuinely believe that. It's like, you put something out, like you should be proud of yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. What keeps you up at night with your job?
I think the loneliness thing, honestly, recently has been like really keeping me up at night because I'm like, here are all these Cosmo readers who are all talking about loneliness, but they're not connecting with each other, which is kind of like the nature of the platforms. But also, they're really coming to us as their authority. Like, how do I connect them? I don't know. And I just think, like, I even talk to my friends, like, they're all struggling with loneliness in their own ways. I don't know. It's just been something I feel like recently I've been like, there has to be an answer.
It's troublesome. And I think, you know, because I hear it too all the time. And part of the problem is like how I'm hearing it is via social media. And I'm an influencer who puts out content on social media, which I do think is the number one reason that people are lonely. So it's tough. It's all part of it. And I like, as much as possible, I try to get my community together in person and encourage people to go do stuff. But it's so social media and our phones are so central and core to our lives that it does frighten me that it's becoming a part of us, this loneliness. It's like, yeah, I wonder if the 17-year-old kind of like teen, young 20s group feels more or less lonely than millennials. I don't know.
Yeah, I think statistically, research says yes, but I don't know. It's always like you should question everything. And I feel like even like your hot mom walks, like that kind of stuff, I feel like actually goes so far. And it seems so silly to be like, we should all talk to each other more. But I wish there was like a way to facilitate it for people where it feels as comfortable as scrolling on your phone in bed.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's like a lot of Gen Z, like high school, prom, all on their phone. Like it was all the pandemic. So it's like that is comfortable to them. Like they haven't had conflict with the best friend in real life.
Yeah.
They haven't like messed up something at school and gotten in trouble in the same way that those experiences, I think, do shape how you experience conflict, how you experience the workplace. I mean, I even think about being an intern at 17. Like, I made so many best friends.
Of course.
To take that away is like...
I know. One of my best friends in my life I met her right after my freshman year of college internship. We met, and we've been best friends ever since. And it's just like... You just don't like, there's nothing like being in a random cold office. Like, you know, you're just like, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And you're like, you're living for the lunch hour and you're like trying to do stuff, but you don't know how to do anything. It's just like, it's so irreplaceable in terms of like formation as a human. So I know I think about that all the time too. And Scott Galloway has a stat that he just said in his podcast at South by about how like, something like 2/3 of college age kids have never asked someone out in real life.
What?
Which is, you know, it's part of it. And this goes back to what I was saying before, which is like, people are afraid. They're like, well, I would never do that. That would be so embarrassing. Like, what if they said no? That's part of life, is going up to, you know, if you know someone, you say, hey, you know, it'd be fun to get a coffee sometime, or it'd be fun to get a drink sometime. Sometimes they say no, sometimes they say yes, but that's part of life. And it's like, that's exactly what I mean by the phones are eroding our level of comfortability with that kind of stuff. And it's not good. That's what's making us lonely. We think rejection will make us lonely. It's not. It's the not trying that's making us lonely.
Yeah. There was just an article that we were talking about in Slack that was like a ring that you can, it's basically like an Aura ring, but it's a new brand and it's like to track your significant other. And I was like, that is way too much information. I think about this all the time. I'm like, you should not know your significant other's every single move. Like that is so scary. And then on top of it, it's like, you know, a lot of generations like didn't grow up like hanging out with their friends as much IRL. So it's like, then that's just more attention on your romantic life. It's hard.
That's a really interesting parallel to draw, and interesting connection. I think that the more lonely we get, the more pressure we put on romantic partners, which I am of the Esther Perel school of thought. It's not good and it's not natural, and it's causing us to all be unhappy, and it's also causing us to stay single longer because we're like, oh, well, this person isn't my therapist, my lover, my best friend, my future tax accountant, the parent to my children as well. It's a ridiculous order that we have for people now, and it's not plausible. So we have downplayed friendship so much in this country. I think it is so detrimental to our society as a whole. And we've catapulted the status of romantic partners. And guess what? We're all fucking miserable because of it. Single people feel terrible because they haven't found the golden goose. People in relationships are like, well, wait, I'm actually not super happy, even though you said that if I got a boyfriend, I'd be happy. It's a mess.
No, I completely agree. I think the way that you talk about female friendship is some of my favorite Tinx lore. Like, truly, I think there is not enough about female friendship out there. Like, I have like my 2 group chats that I basically live tweet my whole life to. My high school group friends and my friends from my first job, and like both of them, like that is everything. And like you should be able to fight with your friends so that when you fight with your significant other, it doesn't feel as scary. You should be able to get rejected from them or canceled or left out and talk about it and move through and have all of those experiences with your female friends so that by the time it happens, you know, with a significant other, it's not that scary.
It's not that scary. Exactly. And also, like, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but 56% of marriages end in divorce. Of the remaining people, a third say they're Ms., but they don't want to get divorced for financial reasons, whatever. A third say it's fine. And only a third say 100% love it, would do it again with the same partner. Guess what? That's 15%.
Wow.
So if you're putting all the eggs in that basket, you know, if you've only got it, if I said you're going to have a surgery, there's a 15% chance you live, you'd be like, oh, fuck that, Tinx, I'm not doing it. So that's why, you're not saying you're using your friends, but you need to keep those friendships alive because you never fucking know what's going to happen in life. And also it makes you a better person. And also it makes you a more attractive partner if you have other shit going on and you're not waiting at home going, oh, I can't wait for them to get home so I can tell them what I had for lunch, you know, whatever.
Totally.
It's important.
There was an article published on Cosmo UK last week that was about how women in their 20s there's a rise in divorce. What do you think about that?
Wow, a rise in divorce. I mean, look, I think there's zero shame in divorce. In a way, I'm glad that people are getting divorced because I think probably for the past, 50, 100 years or so, there have been, since the dawn of time, honestly, I think a lot of women have felt really trapped, and I feel like they haven't felt like divorce was an option, and I feel like there was shame around it, and I feel like now people are doing it more liberally. And I think for me, I care about everybody, but I really care about women being happy. And I always say, when people say, oh, I'm getting divorced, I'm happy, congratulations, because you're advocating for your future happiness. And if it wasn't the right choice, who cares? I respect marriage, but I also don't think it's as big a deal as some people do. I'm being honest. That's my opinion, my personal opinion. So for me, if people get divorced, I'm like, okay, that's good because it means you weren't happy and you tried something and you moved on. Whether people should be getting married so readily in the first place is another conversation. I just don't want people to be unhappy.
Got it. And do you, I assume that you're very pro prenup.
I would never get married without a prenup.
Me too,
I think you're absolutely batshit crazy to get married without a prenup.
Do you think you could identify all of your friends if they have a prenup or not?
A lot of my friends don't.
Wow.
It's funny. A lot of my college friends got married very early. And I think a lot of them don't have them.
It's interesting. I'm so pro. I think my parents are divorced, so I think also that experience weighs into it. I'm also queer, so there are reasons why I think I'm very of course. But it's interesting. I asked some people at Cosmo the other day, and I was like, but could you actually name which one of your friends? Do you actually know? Is that conversation happening in your female friendships? And most people said no. It was interesting.
Yeah, I think I know. I think I could probably name the closest 10 if they have them or don't. But I would say only 4 of them. No, I've actually had it a lot. I think a lot of my friends have opened up closer to the time because it can get testy. It is a weird, it's a weird conversation to have.
Totally.
Should we break up? How should we divvy things up? More complicated if there's children. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but I would just always rather have that insurance. And I also think it's respectful to the other person. I think it's it's a sign of respect for each other. We're very in love now. What happens in the future, we don't know. But should anything happen, I would want both of us to get out of this as unscathed as possible.
Yeah.
I think it just makes sense. Someone just wrote to me AMA last week and said, we're 8 months out from the wedding, and he just now said, or no, it was closer. God, fuck, I remember what it was. But she was like, and he just wants a prenup all of a sudden. Do you think we should break up? And I was like, no, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't leave it that long. And sometimes it does get left that long, I think, because people feel like it's a weird thing to bring up. But I think if you just set the tone in the beginning, whenever you get, it's just, it should be normal.
Yeah.
And when I wrote that on Instagram, a lot of people, which I thought was a great thought, wrote to me and said, everybody actually has a prenup when they get married, but unless you determined by your state that you live in, it's just whether you amend that or not.
That's interesting.
And 9 times out of 10, guess what? Surprise, surprise. It's more shit for the woman in a lot of places. So do your due diligence, because, you know, if you don't write your prenup, the state will write it for you, and you want it to be, you know, act well for you. I think it's so important also with women a lot of the times in heterosexual relationships that they know where their money is. Have had a couple of really calls that stuck in my head where women's partners have taken out loans without them knowing, and the debt is against their name. You got to know where your money is. You got to know what the situation is, and a prenup can help safeguard against those things. Again, I hope nothing bad happens to anybody's marriage, but 56% of them do end in divorce. You would rather have your ass covered.
I think it's also just important to like be okay in the relationship ending sometimes. Like totally. I feel like I talk to a lot of Cosmo readers where they're just like, even accepting that it could maybe end made my relationship stronger, which I think is such an interesting take. And like, yeah, I was talking to this one woman for a while, and she was basically saying that like the fear of her and her they were engaged, her fiance, like the fear of them potentially breaking up was scarier than like when they actually broke up. And I just thought that was so interesting. And she was like, I wish we could get back together just so that I could like understand that I'm fine without you and actually be an independent person.
That's fascinating. I love that. And I think that's a message that I really try to get across to my community, is that you will survive. Like, you will be okay. And again, like your Cosmo reader said, if you know that, it makes you a fundamentally better partner.
100%.
I really think that a lot of people live in scarcity mindset, as in, if we break up, I'm never going to find someone else. If we break up, my life will end, you know, this, that, and the third. And it's not true. It's not true. And I think one of the advantages of being single for a little later, or maybe being single for, you know, most of your 20s, whatever it is you get to establish that as your baseline, and you come from it as a place of come to relationships from a place of, I know I can take care of myself. I know I can make myself happy. Again, I want to be in love, you guys. It's not that. It's that it's an addition, and I'll be a better partner because I know I'm good on my own.
Totally. I agree. And I also just think you notice more things about the world.
For sure.
One of my friends was just going through a pretty rough breakup, and she lives in LA, and she was saying that like every single time she'd get home, like she would just like walk into her apartment with her partner, whatever, they break up. She was like, for the first time I noticed like outside my apartment there was like this like beautiful drawing, and she's like 3 years didn't notice that.
Wow.
Took the breakup. And she's like, it just, you notice things as an artist, and it's interesting. It's interesting.
It's really interesting. This interview is about you, not me. But yeah, sometimes I do wonder, this is just vulnerable, guys. This is a me. I'm not making any statements. I wonder, like, if I would have gotten as far in my career if I had gotten married at 28.
Well, in your
I don't know.
Wait, in your book, you do talk at the end about a relationship.
Yeah, I was in a relationship at the end of it.
What was that like?
It was good. It was like a couple years ago. It was good. Yeah, I've had up until like that breakup, which was in 2022, I guess. I kind of had like a boyfriend like every year or so, and it was good. And then these past 2 years, I've just been like grinding, man. But you know, it's all good.
I want to hear about your new book. Are you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I think I told you about it at the diner. It was just like it was a baby idea, and now it's coming May 6th. Pre-order it now. Hotter in the Hamptons. I found out that I share a pub date with fucking two of the most beloved women in the public eye, and again, like there's enough to go around. We are abundance mindset in this community, but Jesus Christ, could I have picked it? Meredith for Wishbone Kitchen has never done anything wrong in her life. Literally the most beloved person on the internet. And one of my personal heroes, Glennon Doyle, has a book coming out on May 6th. And then my book, which is about influencers and sex.
But it's queer, right? So you wrote it about me.
Basically, yeah. It is. There's aspects.
I can't wait to read it.
It's fun. It's really... It's it's creative writing in its most pure form. And I'm very excited about it. It was just like, I finally just let myself write I used to do these on Instagram. I mean, I still do them sometimes, like rich mom, like stories about these women. Because I always like wake up and I think about like women or I see them and I get like inspired and I'm like, what's her story? And then I like go and I like write about it. And I just like did that at scale. So I'm very pumped about it.
I can't wait to read it.
And yeah. All right. Back to you. Would you rather be well-liked or well-respected?
I think well-respected.
Okay. One of your superpowers is like you're not afraid of leaning into digital talent. And you once told me that you respect influencers and content creators and you like covering them and you like writing about them. And I think that your measured approach to this is so smart. So talk a little bit about that.
So honored you remember that. I don't even remember saying that. But I think it's about capturing this moment in time. And so, I think about when I profiled Noah Beck, for example. I think that's what probably we were talking about. He was like blowing up, and regardless of your feelings about him, like he was speaking to a large audience and saying something very clear. And so from my perspective, coming from GQ, I was like, this man is a story about modern masculinity. Let's investigate that. And I went up to the Hamptons, hung out with the Hype House all day. Literally, it was like wild. They had like acupuncturists come in. It was really wild. But the story was about me sitting at this Hamptons house with him. We were at this little like cafe. I wish I remember what it was called. And someone stopped us and was like, looked at me and was like, oh my God, does Dixie know that Noah's cheating on her? And I was like, I'm literally a reporter. But that is all in the story.
God.
And that's like all part of it for me. I'm like, that was all part of the story. Like at that moment, like he is such a public persona. He can't even be spotted with a journalist. Like, and obviously now I was actually thinking today, like he's really blown up. He's like literally going to all the fashion shows. Like
he's such fashion it boy. Like he's
totally
everywhere. Yeah.
But I think the story at the time was really about like what that meant for young people and like why he was blowing up in this specific way. And so that's why I take digital talent really seriously. And I think, that's why I was like so excited to get brunch with you that day. I do like really love hearing about like how you're speaking to your audience and what they're asking from you. And it's why I read your book. It was like a bestseller.
Thank you.
I'm very much like that. I'm like, you got to see why things are resonating.
You are incredibly observant and you have an uncanny ability to understand what people want, which is, I think is why you're such a good editor.
Thank you.
How do you, I know this is a cliche question, but I'm really curious. What is your work-life balance like? How do you think about it and approach it if you have one? And also, what do you do for fun?
Honestly, I hang out with my friends.
Okay, yeah.
Like someone asked me this week, they were like, things are starting to calm down, like the issues out there, like what are you gonna do? And I'm like, honestly, just hang out with my friends.
Hang with your friends.
Like I literally like love my friends. Like
me too.
I could hang out with them literally all the time. If I like didn't have to go into the office, I would just like talk to them on the phone. Like I'm obsessed with them.
Are most of your friends single or in relationships?
It's actually a mix. It's pretty much a mix. My high school friends, most of them are married. And one of them is, they're like a mix. We have like a pretty mixed bag. And then my two best friends in New York just got married, but it's honestly a mix. And I also find like, a lot of my friends like travel a lot for work. So even if they're married, I don't really have a lot of friends that are dependent on their significant others, to be honest.
I think that's one of the best parts about New York is that people, even if they are in relationships, you don't feel it as much because you're like, everybody's so like on their grind doing their own thing that it's more like infused with.
Yeah. And I obviously like know all their partners, but it really is like me and them. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of my friends is married and she was just saying to me, she was like, I never ask her husband, Matt. She's like, I never ask him for permission to go out. Like I have never done that in my life. She's like, I like live my life and like if we run into each other, great. And I was like, slay.
I love that. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's honestly a fantastic note to end on.
Cool.
Where can people find you? And tell us what to look forward to. Anything you can tell us with Cosmo and 17. What can people be excited to look out for?
I am honestly so excited about the next issue. I just came from editing it and I was like,
when does it come out?
Wow, summer. So it'll start to be sprinkling out soon on digital, but like it is like so I'm just so excited. It's so special to me and like the team is working so hard. We're pouring our hearts into every detail. So yeah, get Cosmos on stands. Follow us on Instagram. I'm Willa H. Bennett. Cold email me your stories.
Cold email her. There
Truly.
you go. That's an opening, guys.
Truly.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I adore you, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. It's really
Thank
cool to
you.
watch all your success. So congratulations.
Thank you. I love you so much. Yeah.
Love you guys. Bye.